This is my review of What is Starfleet, the third season episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Providing aid to a war-torn world, the Enterprise encounters a mysterious and dangerous life form. At the same time, a visiting documentarian turns his lens on the crew, questioning not only their actions, but the very ideals of Starfleet itself. The usual heads up, this review contains a load of spoilers, so if you've not seen this episode yet, maybe go check it out first before watching any further. I have to admit, I've not been looking forward to this one. When the episode titles were revealed a few months ago, along with rumours that we were going to get some sort of documentary episode, I looked at the title and I assumed a lot of bad things. I thought what we were going to get here was something like a workplace kind of mockumentary thing, Trek's answer to something like The Office, and honestly, that filled me with dread. I hate that style. To me, The Office, the original Office, the best Office in the UK, that was it. Everything else since has just been rubbish, and the format has been absolutely done to death in the years since. Thank God then that this isn't what we got here. What is Starfleet, thankfully, isn't a workplace documentary comedy thing, but is actually something far more serious in tone. It's still a gimmick episode, and that's going to divide opinion, but this could have been so much worse. In a few ways, the episode works well. In a few ways, it also just really doesn't. It's another episode that's interesting but uneven, and once again I'm feeling a little mixed, although leaning slightly more positive. Thematically, a lot of this episode reminds me of the second season episode of Battlestar Galactica, Final Cut, an episode that, just like this, sees the ship and her crew, and even the institution, coming under scrutiny from a journalist with an agenda. Here, the one asking the questions is Beto, Ortegas' brother, who was introduced earlier in the season, who has been commissioned to create a documentary, if I remember correctly, to celebrate the Federation's centenary. The idea's fine, and I like the effort the episode goes to maintain immersion, with a title card telling us that this is declassified footage in place of the usual opening credits. But a lot of the execution doesn't work for me. A lot of the documentary footage relies on shaky drone footage, intrusive framing, and loads of extreme close-ups. Most modern documentaries tend to come with a slick presentation and a kind of cinematic visual feel, so it's hard to accept this as some sort of futuristic equivalent. I mean, is this really the best filmmaker they could commission? I know what they're trying to do here. They're clearly trying to hammer home that this is a documentary, the rougher, more verite look, kind of serving in the same way a holographic projection has to always glitch just so we know it's a hologram. But yeah, it doesn't work, it looks like shit, and you're gonna have a nightmare watching this if you suffer from motion sickness. This style and the episode's insistence on maintaining immersion actually hurts the episode, particularly during its climax where the Jakaru creature flies into the sun. It's one of the episode's more emotionally resonant and beautiful moments, and it's a shame then that such a visual is compromised by all the fake documentary filters. There are some flashes of quality here. I like the rain shots of Pike and Una that have a suitably voyeuristic quality to them, really selling the idea of us being privy to things that we're not supposed to be seeing, but these moments are few and far between. I think telling the story normally while intercutting bits of documentary footage might have worked far better here. I mean, that's what they did on Battlestar Galactica, and that turned out pretty well, but I mean, Strange New Worlds has to have its gimmicks, doesn't it? There's some good stuff here, but it's just being forced through a lens that isn't really doing the material justice. Where the episode does work, at least initially, is with its big central question: what exactly is Starfleet? On one hand, Starfleet is a peaceful armada of explorers and scientists, and yet it's also clearly a branch of the military, NASA and Space Force fused together into one big, confusing ideological melting pot. It's an idea that remains fertile ground for exploration. Here, Beto approaches with an obvious agenda, a suspicion that over the course of the episode bubbles over into hostility, more on that in a bit, don't you worry. And eventually we learn why he blames Starfleet for taking away his sister, a service that eventually leads to her suffering a serious injury at the hands of the Gorn. His documentary essentially serves as a vehicle for him to question and poke holes in the idea of this organisation. It's a bias that pushes the conflict, allowing for some strong exchanges as the crew start to push back. Uhura, in particular, is Starfleet's strongest defender. Again, more signs of her development from the unsure ensign we saw at the start of the show. Celia Rose Gooding has been largely underutilised so far this season, but thankfully that changes here as Uhura delivers a passionate defence of Starfleet, describing it as a family that took her in when she was lost. It's a believable conviction, and from a character standpoint is a high point of the episode. But at the same time, I can't help but roll my eyes at modern Trek's continued framing of Starfleet as some sort of home for broken and damaged people. Since Discovery brought Trek back to TV, it seems everyone serving in Starfleet has to be defined by their trauma rather than things like skill and aspiration. Classic Trek's depiction of Starfleet was the best of the best, the right stuff on steroids. Can we have that again? Because I'm kind of getting tired of modern Trek's depiction of Starfleet as a dumping ground for the galaxy's most scarred and traumatized. By far the strongest aspect of this episode is the allegorical sci-fi plotline. The Enterprise is sent into a war zone to retrieve what they believe is a weapon of mass destruction. But in typical Trek fashion, it turns out the weapon is actually a living creature that's been enslaved and artificially reconditioned to harness its destructive power. This is classic Star Trek. At first, the alien appears to be a threat, but as the crew learn more, they realise it's actually something far more relatable and sympathetic. This inevitably reminds me of classic episodes like TOS's The Devil in the Dark, where something initially seen as monstrous is later revealed to be misunderstood and mistreated. This is my kind of Trek, and it's this plotline that provides the most involving and emotionally stirring moments of the episode. The crew's difficult choice between allowing the creature to die and allowing it to be used as a weapon of mass destruction is a classic conundrum that plays into Trek's tradition of compassion towards all alien life. In a few ways, this also reminds me of the Doctor Who episode, The Beast Below, one of the 11th Doctor's earliest adventures, where it's revealed the human race is being carried through space on the back of a space whale that has been captured and forced into service. Like I said, it's the best thing about the episode, and it's a shame that it has to play second fiddle to all the gimmicky documentary stuff. If the alien stuff is the best part, then Beto is the worst. His characterization here feels very inconsistent with his earlier appearances, where he came across as affable, upbeat, and just a nice guy to be around. But here, he's hostile, manipulative, and outright exploitative. The hypocrisy of his actions isn't lost on me. Here you have this filmmaker out to expose the fatal flaws and immorality of Starfleet, and yet he doesn't bat an eyelid when it comes to exploiting members of the crew, be that through insensitive questioning, gotcha-style trappings, or just straight up filming the crew in their most vulnerable moments. How was he given clearance to do all this? By far the most egregious moment comes when he tells Uhura, on camera, that one of her friends was on the Cayuga when it was destroyed by the Gorn at the end of Season 2. This is supposed to be Uhura's friend, or maybe even more based on what we've seen, but he seems more than happy to deliver this shattering revelation purely to capture her reaction. It's gross, and it might be the most villainous thing I've seen all season so far. For me, this is a fatal flaw that undermines the episode's introspective themes. Beto's actions make it really hard for me to take him seriously as someone with valid criticisms. His behaviour is so slimy, so unethical, that it works to undermine the validity of his standing. Trek's always been great when it presents two valid sides of an argument and puts it on us to make up our own mind. But here the imbalance is way too lopsided. The crew's defence of Starfleet is righteous and justified. Judge them not on their words, but on their actions. But Beto, though, comes across as a petulant dickhead with an axe to grind, and so the intended nuance of the argument kinda gets a bit lost. What is Starfleet is another one of those episodes that has a lot of potential, but fails in the execution. The central ideas are strong, and the questions around the nature of Starfleet are valid questions that are worth asking. The performances, particularly from Celia Rose Gooding, help elevate the material, but the gimmicky documentary framing mostly looks like crap and actively weakens the story. And Beto's sudden transformation into a hateful dullard makes him far too unlikable for the moral debate to feel properly balanced. That being said, I still admire the show for trying with these bold and non-traditional episodes. Playing it safe is boring, and I much prefer shows that swing for the fences and take risks, even if the end result is uneven and imperfect. And this is another episode that swings hard and misses more than it connects. Watchable and interesting as always, but also flawed and frustrating at times, but I'm probably just mostly relieved we didn't end up getting the Office in space, and for that reason, I'm giving What is Starfleet a 6 out of 10. It is closer to a 5 than a 7. But what did you think of this episode? Did you love it? Did you hate it? How would you rate it? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more Star Trek reviews, and until next time, live long and prosper.